Hello, gorgeous. How'd you do? How'd you do? You're so gorgeous. You need a secretary.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm super excited about this episode, not only because we're going to be talking about Black history, which you know I love, but because we're also going to be talking about women's history and vintage comics. I love vintage comics. I love the artwork, the smell of the ink, the kooky storylines, just everything. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing the story of Jackie Ormes, who was the very first African-American woman to become a syndicated cartoonist. I'm clearly chomping at the bit to get started, so let's step into our Wayback Machine and turn that dial to August 1st, 1911. Jackie Ormes was born Zelda Maven Jackson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to parents William Winfield Jackson and Mary Brown Jackson. Jackie experienced loss at a very early age when her father was killed in a car accident in 1917 when she was only 6 years old. Due to his passing, Jackie's mother had difficulty supporting her brood, so Jackie and her older sister Dolores lived with an aunt and uncle for a while before Jackie's mother remarried and the family relocated to the nearby city of Monongahela, where Jackie matriculated and graduated in 1930. Throughout her time in high school, Jackie was an avid writer and dabbled in cartooning. She was the arts editor for her 1929-1930 edition of her high school yearbook, and it was during this time that she wrote a letter to the editor of the Pittsburgh Courier, which was a weekly African-American newspaper that was published on Saturdays. The editor at the time, Robert Vann, actually wrote back. This correspondence led to her first writing assignment, which was covering a boxing match. Her writing was well received by the public, and she was offered more assignments, eventually parlaying that writing job into a stint with the Pittsburgh Courier as a proofreader. She also worked as an editor and a freelance writer, writing on police beats, court cases, and human interest topics, but what she really wanted to do was draw. And draw she did. Jackie's first comic strip, Torchy Brown in Dixie to Harlem, first appeared in the Pittsburgh Courier on May 1st, 1937. The strip, starring Torchy Brown, was a humorous depiction of a Mississippi teen who found fame and fortune singing and dancing in a cotton club. That strip ran until April 30th, 1938. I wasn't able to find out the reason for the strip's end, but from what I've read, it was most likely because her contract was up. So Jackie moves to Chicago in 1942, and while she was there, she worked as a freelance writer, but by 1945, she was back at it with the cartoons in the form of a single-panel cartoon called Candy, which was about an attractive, wisecracking housemaid. That one appeared in The Defender from March 24th to July 21st, 1945. By August of 1945, Jackie's work was back in the Courier with Patty Jo and Ginger, a single-panel cartoon which ran for 11 years. It featured a big sister, little sister setup with the precocious and socially politically aware child, Patty Jo, as the only speaker, and Ginger as the silent, beautiful adult woman who worked as a sometime pinup and fashion model. That strip ran from September 1st, 1945 to September 22nd, 1956. The strip was so popular that Jackie contracted with the Terry Lee Doll Company in 1947 to produce a doll based on Patty Jo. By Christmas of that year, the Patty Jo doll was on the shelves and was the first American black doll to have an extensive upscale wardrobe. Also, the doll represented a real child, not the Mammy and Topsy type dolls that were the typical black child's choice. The dolls were actually popular with both black and white children, but unfortunately, in December of 1949, Jackie's contract with the Terry Lee Company was not renewed and production ended. Jackie was not one to be discouraged, and starting August 19, 1950, the Courier began an 8-page color comics insert where Ormes reinvented her Torchy character in a new comic strip called Torchy in Heartbeats. This Torchy was a more sophisticated version, and it featured Torchy as a beautiful, independent woman who finds adventure while seeking true love. There were also Torchy paper dolls that you could dress up called Torchy's Togs, where Jackie was able to show off her talent for fashion design. Jackie created in Torchy an image of a black woman who, in contrast to the stereotypical media portrayals of the time, was confident, intelligent, brave, and had fabulous fashion sense. Ormes also used Torchy and Heartbeats as a sounding board for several big issues of the time. The strip is probably best known for its last installment on September 18, 1954, when Torchy and her doctor boyfriend confront racism and environmental pollution. In 1956, with the last Patty, Joe, and Ginger panel produced, Jackie retired from cartooning, though she did still continue to create art, including murals, still lifes, and portraits, until arthritis made creating art impossible. She did not rest on her laurels, though. She contributed to her community by volunteering to produce fundraiser fashion shows and other various entertainments, and she was also on the founding board of directors for the DuSable Museum of African American History. So she lived a very active life until she died of a cerebral hemorrhage in Chicago on December 26, 1985. Jackie was not forgotten, though, and was inducted into the National Association of Black Journalists Hall of Fame in 2014. And that's it, my darlings. I hope you enjoyed this little slice of art, Black history, and women's history. As always, if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. And I hope I see you back here for my next episode.
Paint and powder, powder and paint, a little lipstick, it isn't necessary, sweet and gorgeous, you're like a breath of spring.